artist in Colorado with a respect for nature and Native American influences considers his greatest masterpiece to be his custom-built passive solar home.
I talk to so many people and they go, oh, you'll never get off the grid. You'll never get off the grid. How about 50% off the grid? How about 70% off the grid? I've seen a lot of houses being in the real estate business. I've gone through thousands of them, and I finally decided that I wanted to design my own sustainable passive solar house. Yeah, my name's Allan McMullen. We're here in Monument, Colorado. We're at 7,300 feet. I have a fine arts degree in three-dimensional sculpture and design. And out of all the art I've created in my life, I really consider this my masterpiece. I got to make aesthetic decisions right down to the minutia, right down to the light switches. Well, you know, my personal space has always been important to me. And after living years in different houses and so forth, the only way to get that space is to design it and build it from the ground up. I call this the art house because it's designed not only to hold art, but to be art. There's some sculptural elements I designed into the house that just make it more interesting. Passive solar is simply orienting the home actually slightly southeast of due south so that you utilize the morning sun when it comes up. It begins generating heat. Well, we get real winters here. So heating is probably the primary factor. Yeah, windows are very important. You have to look at the U factor or the R rating of the window. These walls are R21, but a window is R2. A cheap window is R2. So window selection, dual pane, thermal pane, sometimes triple pane is important. And then minimizing windows on the north side of the house, the cold side. I've talked to builders who have said, oh, no, it's too much sun. Well, they don't understand in the summertime, the sun goes straight over. Living close to the earth and sustainably is not sometimes what you do, but what you don't do. You don't turn on the air conditioner. You don't have to turn on the lights all the time. You don't have to turn the heat up. A well-designed house will do all this for you. This utilizes one of the old turn-of-the-centuries ideas of convection. We have high transom windows here, and you just leave them cracked, the rain won't come in, and the house through convection cools naturally. There's a lot of materials today that are sustainable materials that a lot of people overlook. The basic premise on this house was to build the same house at the same cost, but through design and moving materials around, come up with a sustainable house. We've got bamboo floors here, which is a grass, not a wood. Bamboo is in the Guinness World Book of Records as being the fastest growing plant on the planet. It can grow 35 inches a day. You can literally watch it grow. We've got skylights here. I don't have to turn on lights a lot of the time because the natural light is prominent through every room in this house. We don't have forced air heat. We have hot water baseboard heat, which tends to be more efficient and lasts longer than just hot air going on and off. We've got a EPDM rubber roof, hail-resistant roof here. There's other houses, around here last summer, one house replaced the roof 1 month and then the hail came through the next month and they replaced it again. That's going to the landfill where essentially this is more sustainable. Insulation is the cheapest upgrade you can do to a house. Just insulate it as much as you can to hold the passive solar heat gain in the house and keep it from escaping. We used formaldehyde-free insulation in this house when we built it. In architecture and in building today, there's a lot of off-gassing. So these are low VOC paints used throughout this house. The formaldehyde in insulation tends to off-gas. So you want to keep off-gassing to a minimum. The carpet is recyclable. It doesn't go into the landfill when it's torn out. It gets recycled into other fiber products of some kind. You know, Passive solar gain is simple because you don't do anything except let it happen. So I keep electronic things to a minimum, although as time goes on, they become more affordable and more usable. But for instance, here in this house, we have motion sensor light switches for the closets, the utility room. You'll never leave a light on and waste energy with the motion sensors because they turn off after you leave. So basically lights turn on and off as you move through this house. Again, sustainability is all about conserving energy. We've designed the drainage patterns on this house to come off in areas where we want to landscape so we can utilize a natural runoff from the roof versus having to turn on the hose all the time. Even my driveway is recycled concrete. They tear up all these curb and gutters, they grind them up, and the base coat for my driveway is recycled concrete. So we try to reutilize as many products as we can. Site-specific building is so important. It's important that you site the house on the lot correctly and that you also site it to minimize the impact on the land. Down in the Southwest here, we're part of the Southwest, the topsoil is very fragile. If you scrape it and cut it, it never comes back unless you really invest a lot of money in landscaping. So siting it correctly and placing it correctly in the lay of the land instead of to the street is essential. So we sited this right in here so there was very little landscaping to be done. The natural landscaping comes right up to the house. It all faces south. Well, a lot of people want to live closer to the land. They want to be sustainable. They want to do the right thing. But now here's where the artist comes out in me. You can create sustainable boxes, but they're still boxes. So there has to be an element of surprise. There has to be angles. There has to be level changes in a house. The great room is dead. A sustainable house doesn't have a 16-foot high ceiling. They're hard to heat. They're acoustically tough. So you've got to bring things down, bring them closer in, keep the room smaller and intimate, and all of this adds up in the end in the finished home. It creates a more intimate setting for your lifestyle. Yeah, if more people wanted to take care of the planet and if they wanted to live closer to nature, they would create a demand, and that demand would filter over to the builders, to the landscapers, and people like that, and they will begin to meet that demand, and it's starting to happen. But it needs to happen really on an intellectual basis. People have to understand it's better to live sustainably. It's better to design sustainable dwellings than to just knock up these boxes and, blow and go. I had a fabulous childhood. I grew up in a rural area south of Santa Fe. We had horses. My best friends were Native American kids. We ran all over the place, made bows and arrows. The tricultural influence down there was very strong in terms of the Anasazi Indians and so forth. You just take all of this and you keep mixing it and remixing it. I mean, some of the best principles, the Anasazi cliff dwellings all face south. So in the wintertime, they stay warm. You just take all of these ideas and you keep remixing them, and it's the age of Aquarius. We just keep changing and evolving as time goes on, and houses, dwellings, really need to evolve, and I'm happy to say they're starting to do that now with sustainable practices and sustainable living.